This is the third part of the story about the Hyundai Elantra N driver who got pulled over in California and got issued a noise ticket for having a stock exhaust.
Why is it backfiring?
It's
making noise.
I know, it's how it comes stock.
And I got some bad news. There's actually a couple new laws in California that are going to give the police a lot more power to enforce laws like this and make the penalty a lot higher if you break these rules. So we're going to talk to the sports car attorney, Phil, and he's going to break it down for us. So let's follow up on our Hyundai Elantra N driver. If you haven't seen the first two parts of the story, go ahead and watch those first before you come here. But just to give you a quick update, a Hyundai Elantra N driver got pulled over in Riverside County, California by a rather ambitious police officer.
I send you the state rep. All right, state rep for here in California. They're going to suspend your registration. Can't drive the car. You got to go take it to the state rep, about $4,000.
So the state ref is an independent organization. They're hired by the state to evaluate the sound level of a car. He went in, the state ref asked him what's the loudest mode in the car, and the driver showed him what that was. The bar referee tested it and it didn't pass. So he didn't get a certificate of compliance that he needs to take to the judge to show that the car is now compliant. He went to Hyundai Corporate. Hyundai Corporate said they couldn't help him. He went to the dealer. The dealer said the car is stock. We can't really help you. And where we left it was that the driver was going to go to court. So I've been chatting with the driver on Reddit, and his court date was actually a couple weeks ago in November. And at this point, I gotta tell you that the driver doesn't really like all this attention. I don't think he sort of liked the media circus that sort of happened around this case, and he's actually gone quiet and he hasn't actually posted an update, except here's a couple things I can tell you. One possibility is that he went to court and he got the ticket dismissed. Another possibility is he went to court and he couldn't provide the certificate of compliance, so he still had a problem. Now, he told me he was looking for attorneys, traffic attorneys, and as far as I know, there's no way of resolving the situation without either the attorney or the driver going to court. So I don't know if that's actually happened yet, but he also told me he was working with Hyundai Corporate to get the car bought back under the lemon law. Hyundai said no because it wasn't really a lemon. And the third thing is he told me that he was actively shopping for offers on the car. And after a lot of work, he said the best one that he got was $28,000. That brings me to the sponsor of this video, Carmigo. I recently sold my car. I went to a bunch of websites, a couple different dealers, Facebook Marketplace. It was not a great experience. Ultimately worked out, but I would have used Carmigo if I had known about it at the time. It's a way simpler process. You list your car on their marketplace. It takes about 15 minutes. Then your listing goes to their nationwide network of dealerships, and within one business day, you're gonna get multiple offers. But here's the cool thing, you can set a minimum price, so if you don't like that offer, you're done, you can just walk away. Now when you sell your car, there's a flat fee which they deduct from the purchase price, but I worked with Carmigo to get you a $50 discount, so if you wanna check it out, just click the link down below. And now let's get back to the story, and if the driver does contact me with another update, I will post another video, but that might be it for the moment. And now let's welcome back Philip Nulud to the show. He is an intellectual property attorney and a partner at a law firm in California. And of course, Phil needs to give his disclaimer before we can get into it.
Yeah, so the disclaimer is this is not to be construed as legal advice. The views expressed here are mine and mine alone. I am not your attorney. I'm not a traffic attorney. If you get pulled over, I would advise you to seek competent counsel.
I'm calling you the sports car attorney because we both love sports cars and we've been messing around with sports cars on the track and off for years. So we've got a couple of new laws in California that people might not be aware of that have been signed into law. They're going to go into effect pretty shortly. So the first one is SB 1079. So this is something to do with sound activated enforcement devices. So tell me about this new law. What is this and what does it mean?
So the new law authorizes the California Highway Patrol to engage in a study that will engage 3 vendors to determine how they can give violations for sound violations. So anything over 95 decibels. What I picture is just like at Laguna Seca, there's going to be a sound booth or there's going to be a rolling sound booth that will track down what sound levels are coming from what cars, take a picture of it, and give a ticket from there.
So right now, of course, in California, we have an existing law, which is a 95 dB sound limit, which the Hyundai Elantra driver and many others have been accused of violating. So this sounds kind of like a speed camera, but for sound. Is that right?
Yeah, it does.
We have potentially some new sound cameras coming up. I understand that the CHP, the California Highway Patrol, is authorized to conduct this study and choose three vendors, I guess, and they have 2 years to do it. What exactly is this noise camera? What is it, what is it going to do?
It's going to determine the loudness by decibel of a car's exhaust. So they're going to have devices that are pointed towards traffic, presumably, and they will determine how loud a car is. I assume they will be recording the entire time. So in the text of the code, it says that, any video evidence will be deleted after 5 days. Obviously, this is done to protect people's privacy, but that tells me that they're envisioning this to just be continuously video recording cars.
It looks like they're going to have 2 cameras. So it says here in subsection E1, record audio, precision, accuracy, noise levels, and high definition video in 2 directions. They got you coming and going. So even if you don't have a front plate, they're going to get you potentially. We've got this existing noise rule right now, and this guy in Riverside allegedly violated it because the cop followed him and just heard with his own ears, didn't have any measurement, and stopped the guy. So this sounds like this could really enlarge the trap, I guess you could say, the net that the CHP and other enforcement agencies could use to catch people with loud exhaust. Is that right?
Absolutely.
With this noise camera, does this give officers or the police department the ability to check and see if it's accurate?
I think so. So in different sections of the vehicle code that were added, it has, like, for example, in section B1C, it says what percentage of time an officer was unable to determine the source of the sound that activated the device. There are other requirements here, for example, that they have to conform to accuracy standards, and it'll permit the department to manually review evidence to ensure a violation has occurred. So I think that these devices are going to be a lot more accurate rather than just an officer's ear, right? It's hard for us to determine what's actually 95 decibels, especially when it's on the road where a number of cars are there. You'll get a lot of background noise rather than in situ by itself. I'm sure in a lab we can all figure out 95 decibels, but 96, 97, 98, that's kind of tough.
Yeah, I foresee this being like 2 kinds of possible scenarios here. We've got unmanned stations where they just pull up a van, park it at the side of the road, and it's pointing, and it records all this data, and then later it sends it back to the department and they can review it then. And also potentially maybe a handheld style device like a laser gun where the officer just points it at a car and something pops up in a display and it says 96, 97 dB or whatever it says. Yeah, so we're looking at potentially a lot more enforcement coming down the road. Let us know in the comments what you guys think of this new wonderful law that's here to protect everyone.
Absolutely.
So the next law that we're talking about is AB 2496, dealing with vehicle exhaust systems. So this has to do with vehicle registration. Right now in California, we have this rule where if you violate this 95 dB law, you're sent to BAR, the Bureau of Automotive Repair, and an inspector at the station is going to test your exhaust level, the noise level, and then give you a certificate of compliance or not. And then you got to take that to court, and the court will, I guess, say, hey, we've accepted the certificate, you're good to go. Or if you don't go to court, you don't get the certificate, you're kind of between a rock and a hard place. But right now, as I understand it, if you don't get the certificate, does that have any effect on you or your ability to register your car?
I'm not entirely sure of this, but I would assume so, because most people who get fix-it tickets for EPA matters, such as smog defeat devices, they can't register their car. If you don't have a certificate of compliance with regard to some of the emissions features, it's my understanding that you can't register your car. So this would just make sound one of those limiting factors. And I think we're going down a slippery slope here, because I think it's very vague in this statute and the previous one we discussed as to what about valved exhausts? What about exhausts that can change the sound depending on whether a valve is open or closed? I'm sure a lot of bar examiners will not know how to test the car. And if you have another situation where let's test it in sport or in race mode, it's going to be a lot louder.
So this guy with the Hyundai, the problem that he had was this car has a valved exhaust. You can have something in, I think it's called N mode, but a lot of cars call it sport mode or track mode or something.
Mhm.
It opens up the valve in your car so you have a louder exhaust. It bypasses some internal part of the exhaust to give you more noise. And so when this guy went to the bar inspector to get his car tested, he was over 95 dB because the bar inspector asked him how to turn on N mode, what's the loudest mode, and he tested it that way, and the guy unfortunately failed.
This law amends the section in the vehicle code to give bar examiners the discretion to test various cars for compliance to the 95 decibels. Maybe it'd be wise to back up with regard to the valved exhausts, because I wouldn't say it's a bypass, because bypass is a legal term in the vehicle code. And I think opening up a valve will allow for more airflow. It'll open up a certain chamber, or it'll open up in some of my cars, you'll have one exhaust valve, one exhaust tip kind of closed off. And when you move it to race mode, it'll open up the exhaust tip within either the muffler or the exit of the muffler to allow for more gases to escape, and therefore it's a little bit louder. So we don't know if this code will actually affect that. And I wouldn't say that these valve exhausts are bypassed, because we're not bypassing a muffler. This is after the muffler.
That's true. Yeah. So this is, bypass is a legal term in the code, and the code says you shall not bypass the muffler, essentially, which in my interpretation of the intention of that is so that people don't have a cutout that completely bypasses the muffler, like,
Absolutely.
So here's the thing: in the comment section, everybody was, or not everybody, a lot of people were saying Hyundai is making a car that's illegal, which doesn't sound right to me. There's way too much liability for any manufacturer to do that. Porsche a couple of years ago had an issue with, I forget what agency, regarding the GT3 with the manual transmission. Apparently it was a little too loud, so they worked with them. So I don't think any manufacturer is going to intentionally make a car that is quote unquote illegal to sell in the state. That would be financial suicide for them to do that. We got a situation here with this AB 2496 where that you have a potential violation, you don't get your certificate of compliance for whatever reason. Now, when you take your car to the DMV to register it, coming January 1st, 2027, if you have a violation and you don't have the certificate clearing it of compliance, you won't be able to register your car. That's my reading of this new law.
That's my understanding as well.
I mean, I see a potential problem with is just from a cost standpoint. The DMV has very old computers. Pretty much every government department in the US has really, really old computers from the 70s. For them to update the code across the entire DMV, and I mean the computer code, to update the software with 30, 40, 50-year-old code at some cases. Maybe that's a bit of an exaggeration, but some of these go back to the 80s. It's very difficult. It's going to cost the DMV millions of dollars, in my opinion, to update the software to make this thing actually happen. So that's a big thing. So it may not happen by 2027. And I think it's going to cost the people of California a lot of money to do this just up front.
Another fantastic law that really protects us from all the crime and ridiculousness that's going on.
Right. And so from my reading of the analysis of these bills, the intention behind this is to reduce hearing loss because extended exposure to high dB levels causes hearing loss. But who's standing at the side of the road listening to loud exhaust for extended periods of time? I go to a racetrack, sure, but on a public street, no, I don't do that. I'm failing to find what the real assistance of the public is here.
Same. Maybe they're thinking about the people in the cars, right? You're the driver and the passenger. But at that point, this is assumption of risk. You know what's going to go. If you're putting in a straight pipe or if you're putting in a loud exhaust, you know what you're getting. And you should wear earplugs. But
and as far as I can tell, I haven't checked every single state law. As far as I can tell, I think this sound noise bit of code is unique to California, or maybe just another state or two. I'm not really sure, but let me know down below if your state enforces noise regulations like California does. All right.
I would not doubt if California was the only state or when it was one of the first states.
So the noise camera rule goes into effect 2025. That's when the CHP, the California Highway Patrol, has to produce a report to the state that says, here are the 3 vendors we recommend for these sound cameras. That's going to affect people in California. And the second one is the registration rule, going to go into effect in January 1st, 2027, maybe, if they can get it done. So big impact on drivers in California. Phil, final thoughts on this?
We'll have to wait and see what California will do, what the CHP will do. And I'd be a little weary of getting any aftermarket exhaust systems at this point, because who knows if you'll be part of that test group, right? If the CHP will be testing that on the side of your freeway. It still leaves a lot to be determined as to how they're going to implement all of this. And we'll have to wait and see. But I am not looking forward to having a sound booth off the 405 with a CHP officer ready to chase me down if I blow sound.
What if your car is misidentified? Whether there's a truck right next to you that was way louder? There's all kinds of questions about how accurate or inaccurate this could be, how this will be enforced. I think there's a lot of open questions, and frankly, I'm not a fan of this particular new law. If you enjoyed this video, click this one right over here for more content just like it. Thanks for watching.